Right, let's do it.
Right. Hey all.
Hello,
Welcome.
everyone.
Yeah, welcome to the Backpedal and Friends pre-festive throwdown. Have I gone to the shop? Not quite, Katie.
Look at that. A lot of sass in the chat already.
Right.
You got any bike input from the pen already, Tommy? There's a whole range in the B pen.
Let's have a look. So we've got a lot of Trons, to be fair.
Yeah, 9 riders. I can see 5 Trons, I think, and then ooh, Canyon Air Road. A couple of Canyon Air Roads. I think that might be what I'd have gone for. Yeah,
I
interesting
see
set
a
of choices.
few Cervelos with the DT Swiss disc there. I'm loving the Trek and what looks to be a quite lightweight setup over there. That'll be interesting to see how that goes on the climb.
Yeah. I can see a lightweight set as well. I think it depends on your strengths, doesn't it? But if you're a rider who is already strong on the flat, then giving yourself every advantage up the hills makes sense, I suppose.
I'm
That is
not.
not me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get that.
Yeah. It's gonna be interesting. See, if it were me, I'd be going with Tron here. Like overall, just the performance on not only the flat but also on the climb. It's just kind of that nice middle ground. With it being such a drafty climb as well, sure there's more to gain from having a cool coloured bike than there is from actually kind of going full lightweight.
Yeah, I would go probably the opposite. I would go full aero. I think if I owned them, if I wasn't a Zwift noob, I'd be going with the Cervelo S5 2020 and the DT Swift discs. As it is, I've only got those what brand is it? The other disc, the Zip discs that are basically no better than the Tron on the aero side, and they're much heavier. But still, what I'd go for, I think, personally. Tron's boring, isn't it? Makes Tony
Ah,
Applewhite go mental in a ZRL. Says it's a stupid glowy bike, but
well, we've got a big vote for Tron there with Mr. Ed Laverack on one.
oh, Ted Maverick,
Ha!
he's done something, hasn't he? All right, cyclist in. Um, Here I am slagging off the Tron whilst on one in the B pen. I'm not riding. Yes, I am on one. Uh,
So, which one of us Nathan and which one of us is Dave then? Kelvin's asked.
oh,
I was thinking
I'll be
more after you.
no, you go. I don't watch enough ZCL to know.
I was thinking more of a GCN comparison here with, I don't know, someone like Magnus Backstead with Nick giving all the useful info, and me being, Carlton Kirby chirping in with absolute rubbish.
I
I
can
do him a
respect that.
disservice there. Do him a disservice there. Uh,
Yeah, just make sure we're never watching the important part of the race at any given time. We got
yeah, we'll go off fan viewing in Titans Grove whilst the first splits happen.
yeah, we got recipes. We've got history of Watopia ready to give you. Anything that's not the important bits of the race.
We'll do
Make
some
sure we do
wildlife photography. We're looking for Jarvis the bear.
it. Perfect. So what have we got? A few minutes till kick off.
So I think we should have a little talk through starting with the A's and then working our way through the categories. Potentially some of the riders we might be looking at in this race.
Yeah, sounds good. So who are your picks from the A pen?
So I'm gonna obviously you can't overlook Ed. I mean, Miss he's got the strongest watts per kilo. Oh, I've got to boost your volume. I've been secretly keeping you quiet.
Give me a sec. See if I can do anything about it, Lord, as well.
Uh, it's probably my end. Right, give that a
Okay.
go.
Right, I'm still talking. Lord, give us feedback. If not, I'll just project. I've never been accused of being quiet, so I'll be
It's,
louder if needs be.
I think it's with Spotify. The background music is normally too loud
Okay.
compared to me. But now, obviously, we want you to be loud. But yeah, no, you
Yeah,
can't overlook Ed with the best loss per kilos all the way through. But my dark horse is Mick. I mean, the man can draft like an absolute god at drafting, and his racecraft is impeccable. Plus the fact that kick, if he gets to anywhere near the line with the front group, you've got to back him with an over 1,000 watt 15-second sprint.
Mick knows exactly what he's doing. Ed Laverack, I'm not going to bother talking about. I think his reputation precedes him. We won't bother there. But yeah, Mick, I totally agree. I think he's a good shout because that kick will get him over everything except the volcano, and the volcano's drafty, so it doesn't necessarily matter. He knows exactly what he's doing with all of the Zwift dynamics. I think I would give a shout out to Kelvin. I've tried many times to get Kelvin off my wheel. He's a stronger cyclist than me, so obviously I can't do it, but Kelvin knows what he's doing in a race as well. But also, all right, let's get this wrong straight away. I am the junker. Soft Ian, I'm going to call him. Right or wrong. He's got a mad watts per kilo over 20 minutes, over 7 minutes on the volcano. If he gets there, I really think he'll be hard to get rid of. I think he'll know exactly how to deal with that climb. I think we could see a lot out of him, and I think people like Mick will really want to get rid of him before that climb if they're gonna get anywhere. So yeah, he's sort of my pick from the A's. You want to go through to the B's? You got any picks down there? I didn't mean down there. I was scrolling down my list. That sounded very rude.
For me, I think it's interesting in the B's. Really quickly, actually, before we jump in the B's, I'm just going to see what we're hearing over Discord with the start.
Starting.
Yeah, here we go.
Typically, they all go quiet as we start. But yeah, so see how the group gets off the line. Looking like everyone's getting off quite well together, really. Yep, a whole pack of 15 riders off together, a little bit stretched out, but nothing to worry about.
Straight into the desert, so you wouldn't expect any lone riders to go. They're never going to beat the blob here, are they? It's it'll blob up, I assume. You know, yeah, it's an A race because the numbers are lower than they would be in the B or the C or the D. Everyone's just
a little bit blocked out, but we've already got Mr. Ed Laverack off the front. 5.8 watts per kilo solo from the start. 6 watts per kilo.
Oh my god! Here we go.
Anyway,
can he beat the blob?
They're bringing him back. The man himself, Gunnar Darlin, on the front, putting out massive watts.
Oh
Apologies for butchering the name there, but
I assume Gunnar is going to be doing. Yeah, he's at 2.9 watts per kilo, so that's probably 700 watts or something. Gunnar's an absolute tank.
Shout out to Paul Lee K as well, coming forward and closing that gap as well. It's another dark horse for me in this race, actually. He's pushed himself really well on those 5-minute efforts. And if he's near the finish, yet again, he's got that class racecraft. Yeah.
You know, Paul is a bit like with Geraint Thomas, where you're like, oh, he's got the strength, but can he stay on his bike? With Paul, it's like he's got the strength, but will his internet hold out till the end? Who knows? If his internet holds out, Paul's a real contender.
At least there's not a Zwift update this time.
Yeah, well, yes, exactly. Over on my end here, Tommy, we just got the B's kicking off now. I'm currently watching Phil Vink, who's one of my picks from the B's. He's got a Zwift power profile full of goals and a very strong cyclist. Let me head over to fan viewing. Katie Loka, who's my other pick. Her watt per kilo is, it's incredible. I really think she could potentially do a lot with this race. It's a nice finish for her as well. So I think they'd be my two in the B category to watch and see how they do. It's very civilized here. Civilized start. Nice blob from the beginning. No knobheads. Better than the A's.
Some very strong picks there. It's gonna be interesting. I'd like to see what some of the Vision boys can do, because there's some very, very strong Vision riders in that B blob right there. I mean, yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how team tactics potentially play out between the kind of two dominant teams of Backpedal and Vision in terms of numbers.
Of course, I don't know the Vision guys at all, so I've not picked any of them. But you do, don't you? You got history with Vision, so.
Well, yeah, it's so lots of them have raced APAC ZRL with some really high level teams, which is yeah, so obviously shows pedigree and some newer riders there. But bringing us back to the A category shortly, we've already got an attack of Gunner and Peter McMullen off the front, putting out massive watts. Paul EK chasing across, and they're being let go. They've got a bit of a gap there. It's only 2 seconds, but people aren't wanting to commit to the chase too much at the moment. It's looking like that's definitely going to be interesting.
These are three like strong lads with high raw watts, and they know that once you get onto the rollers of Titans Grove or even onto the climbs, that they're going to be at a potential disadvantage. So they've gone, well, let's make the pack hurt whilst we're at an advantage. Fair play. That's ballsy, that is.
5-second gap on the flats, and as I say, nobody wants to fully commit to the chase, and yeah, these boys are pushing out over 300 watts, 350 watts here, so strong start from them.
I do wonder what's going through the minds of those back in the pack. If it were me, I'd be thinking someone else. Surely you want to close this gap. I'd be hoping that in the rollers of Titans Grove, that blob effect might be good, but they are hemorrhaging time. 8 seconds to Ted Maverick there. That's very impressive. Fair play.
They've really put the hammer down. I mean, yeah.
You know what Split always says to me is, if you're going to make an attack, commit to it. And here you go. They're getting up to 10-second gap. The watts these guys can do, absolutely no joke. Look at that. Guna just cruising around 400 watts. That's my 30-second pull in a TTT.
Massively impressive here. But yeah. Back to the BCAT, as you say. How's it looking over there?
So far, no attacks that I can see. It's very good. There've been a few jokes in the chat about it being a no drop ride, which I respect. I think to some extent it's a little bit more cagey. I think people are getting comfortable in the blob and are expecting to hold off their attacks for a little while. If you look on Zwift Power, there are a few. We've got a range from people with a 20-minute power of 230 watts up to 350 watts. So if people wanted to go, it wouldn't surprise me if we saw something soon, but perhaps everyone's wanting a little cruise in at the moment. I say cruise in. They're doing 3.5 watts per kilo, which is serious riding. Just no one making the attack. No team effort at the moment.
It's a
fair play.
It's going to be interesting with that race because it's going to really light up in Titans Grove. It has to. But
yeah.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's such a brilliant course though for tactical opportunities. Like for me just had a Lord in the chat. I'll pronounce the nation gunner, as in a gunner gunning it off the front.
Lord, yeah. I don't want the right pronunciation. Give me more incorrect pronunciations. Thank you, David Runham in the chat there saying let them go. 25 seconds down. That's crazy. Back in the ACAT. That's sensational riding. Yeah.
Gonna quickly drop into Discord and see what's being said.
Yeah, it sounds good. In the meantime, I'm going to apologise. I can't fan view the C race at the moment. I really did want to, and I'm trying to find any way to do it, but I'm struggling, I'm afraid.
Right, so I'll leave Discord open and see if we pick anything up at some point. But yeah, It's interesting to see the pack up this little drag. They're putting out a few more watts, not enough to bring the gap back. Well, as I say that, Mr. Ian de Jonker has come to the front, putting 5 watts per kilo out, and is closing that gap, bringing that gap back slowly, ever so slightly. Or in theory,
don't be a knobhead, Ian. It's like you shouldn't be riding to pull them back. That was a personal opinion. Not he's actually watching this, and I probably shouldn't be giving him tips.
Epic, Tony.
Stupid, anyway, he is off the front, isn't he? Good lad.
Or should I say confident?
hey, we've got a little bit coming in from the Discord now. Although,
hopefully they're getting plates.
but yeah, if we could have any of the B racers watching, give us a little overview of how they're feeling right now, that'd be great.
All chilling right now.
Not good.
Tony's already trying to break up, but let's close the gap.
Interesting to see
going off the front of the bees here.
If they want to win, they have to follow me.
Chris Taylor of the Alpacas is pushing the pace here, and Phil Vink is closing it down. They are getting a bit of time, but I don't think he's going to get away from that blob just yet. It's nice to see, though. People are just starting to kick, starting to really test what everyone else in the group has got to give. Katie Loca now pushing through. I don't know if that's just a draft effect or if she's really having a go. If she's having a go, fair play.
I will quickly apologise to everyone. I'm afraid I can't get the B race up on FanView because I can't seem to get them up on any of the riders in it up on my companion app to fan view them. So apologies about that, guys. At the finish of the A race, I'm hoping to be able to find a way to jump across for it. At the moment, we are stuck with the A race, which at the moment, yet again, we've got Peter, Gunnar and Paul putting out basically a perfect TTT on the front there. Forcing this group to, they're going to have to ride at some point because that's a big gap of 30 seconds there.
You know what it is, mate. All 3 of those boys have got a BP1 jersey in the kit bag. They've all done the TTTs. They know what they're doing. Fair play. Something I could do, this is a boring technical thing, but if you really want, I can share my screen on FanView. You'll lose me and Tommy and you'll be able to see the B race. There's a very small window within the A race. I don't know if anything interesting happens, I can do that. It'll be hard to follow. Not that I'm saying it's a boring race, but
if we can get that, I should be able to increase the size of the window of it as well at points, which if there's exciting things happening, we'll have to open it up a bit.
Yep. Every so often we can have a look at that. Kelvin Newman in the chat on Zwift there, offering to do a turn. I think he might be lying. Kelvin's always good for a turn, but he doesn't do any work he doesn't have to, and rightly so.
Loving the enthusiasm of these guys to work. It's a proper tactical race. Coming back to that point I was making about Bigfoot Hills being such a tactical course. It includes all the different power durations. Like there's enough flat for those big engines, like we see here with Paul, Gunnar, and Peter off the front. They can really make people hurt. But at the same time, there's those punchy climbs like up all the way through the Titans Grove, and even with the kind of 3-minute maybe drag up the Titans Grove KOM. That's going to really suit the punchier riders in the pack. Same with the forward KOM being what? Minute and a half, minute 40. It's going to really be interesting to see how hard they push that. Because if the lighter guys or punchier guys want to drop some of the better, longer watts per kilo guys ahead of the Volcano, it's a really good opportunity for them too.
Yeah, totally agree, Tommy. I think that the beauty of this course is that there's no rider profile that can't have a reasonable plan here. It's not like a race up the Alp where if you're a heavy like sprinter, there's just no point. There's no plan you can make. Whatever your ride profile is on this course, you can identify a point that you might play to your advantage, and you've got a good chance of getting away. And I think that makes it a lot of fun, especially for us even watch. And I raced this the other day, and it was fascinating. I'd never raced it before. So yeah, absolutely top course. Like you say, the drags, I think Titans Grove, because it's got the actual com on it, but it's also got that drag up to the com. if someone's not confident on their 4-minute power, you can just attack for 1 minute when no one's expecting it. And if you get your gap, you get your gap. You know, you can attack just at the very top of the com, and if you're a heavy person, you can descend fast. You can get your gap there. And although it might be decided where we've got our custom finish at the top of the volcano, I wouldn't count on it. I would, in fact, here we go. Chris Taylor again off the front doing high power in this B course. You know, people aren't happy to sit in and just accept it.
As you say that, over in the A race here, we've got the group has been lighting up. We saw some Ginger What's It numbers out in the group there. Yet again, Kelvin flashing up with a couple there, and it's really stretched out a bit. And actually, they're putting the hurt on each other to try and. It's not a concerted chase, but people aren't happy with this 35-second gap off the front. Right.
Yeah, I don't know about you, Tommy, but if I were in that pack, I wouldn't be happy with 35 seconds. When you saw the guys go and it was 5-6 seconds, you'd say let them dangle, you know, let them sit in the wind. 35 seconds is serious. That's stress time for the blob, I think.
I mean, as you say, for me, I'm never one to ride on the front and bring a group back. I mean, why would I? I'm a more lightweight rider who, in my opinion, I'm better off punching away and clipping across to groups that are off the front once they're tired out. And I can kind of use them as a stepping stone for a late attack. But at the same time, I mean, looking at this, like, that gap's gone so far that I wouldn't want to just sit in the group. I mean, these boys
absolutely.
on the front are working, but all of them are doing sustainable powers in the group. Like, they can keep this up the whole way, particularly with a few descents to kind of get a little bit of respite on. And there's enough of them that there is that bit of draft. So at this point, it should be panic stations back there. And I think we'll see, once the road starts to rise, there'll really be some hurt put on from the more featherweight guys such as Ed and Ian.
I think what's interesting is how do they respond now? Because on the flat, you know, people like Ian, Kelvin, they could TTT, but against the likes of Gunnar, Peter and Paul, they're going to be at a Watts disadvantage. But the climbs in this aren't long enough to pull back 40 seconds. You know, on Titans Grove Com, you're not going to pull back 40 seconds. Then it's a descent where these guys off the front have the advantage again. The forward com, it's going to be 2 minutes at most. You're not going to pull back 40 seconds. So I think they're going to have to do something differently to what they have been. I don't know whether that is just punching through every roller of Titans Grove and using the blob momentum to their advantage, or I don't know. What do you think? I'm running out of suggestions here.
Honestly, I think this is coming down to Volcano. I think they've got to work hard on the climbs to keep that gap down until that point, and then they're just going to have to go nuclear on this Volcano. Like, yeah. We're talking Krakatoa level of eruption up it. Like, honestly, yeah, it's going to be an exciting race at the end there. But as we say that, we're back down to kind of 30 seconds. We've lost 5 seconds on that slow drag up into Titans Grove, and although I don't think they'll bring them back in through this here, it's rolling enough that the slightly bigger blob momentum will help greatly with those consistent rollers, and actually they'll be able to spark it in the group much more up each little kick because they've been sitting in that little bit more, and they're not worried about so much about holding that consistent effort the whole way through.
Yeah, perhaps I've underestimated that blob effect, like you say, through Titans Grove, because it's such a series of, 5 meters up, 5 meters down, but 3 to 5%, you get blob momentum, and then all it takes is one person to kick to bring the group through and maintain speed. Whereas as a group of 3, that's really hard. Forgetting your watts per kg, it's hard to roll that momentum through in the same way. So,
looking at that, we're seeing this front group here. They're averaging between 40 to 47 up and down, but in that second group, it's just that little bit higher. They're getting up speeds closer to 50, 51, 52 on the descents, simply from that bigger blob momentum. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how that plays out through. Although saying that, definitely. They're pushing on a bit at the front now, and they've stabilised that gap around the 29-30 second mark.
If the breakaway can hold over 20 seconds when they hit the top of that Titans Grove com, then they're in a really nice position because they've then got the descent coming. They're bigger lads. They've got bigger watts. They're in a happy place, I think.
Certainly gonna,
Laverack, 2 watts per kilo. What you doing, mate?
it's going to be. I'm going to say my money may have been on the wrong people here. I mean, they've played it perfectly so far. The question is, can they keep this up?
Curse of the commentator.
Over in the B race, it's fully stringing out as we come into Titans Grove. I don't think anyone's going, but you're getting onto that first sort of drag. Mike Box is off the front. It's snaked. I think it might split into 2, actually. I think this might hold.
Do you want
it's
to
looking really interesting.
Share your screen in Zoom and see if we can get you screen it in the picture?
Let me see what I can do. Yeah, I'll keep talking to you about it in the meantime. It says host disabled participant screen sharing, Tommy. So if you have a look at the settings, see if you can re-enable that. But it is tentatively back together. Michael Harron there has just kicked in ginger numbers to get over a climb.
Give it a go again for me.
Yeah. Here we go. So share. I'm hoping now, if you give us a few seconds, it might come up. Are you having any luck with that? Can you see it, Tommy?
I can see it, and it appears to be coming on stream, although it's a little bit choppy for us over here.
Okay, so maybe we'll see here and there. Oh, Luke Muller's just off the back on Titans Grove. That's really hard. Let's see if he can kick to get back in. I think we might have seen our second drop of the bees. Well, I'm the first drop, still sitting in the pen. And then there's Horsemeyer, who lost the blob very early on. I think, unfortunately, Luke has just lost contact there. That might be the end of his race in the blob. It's going to be very hard to catch those boys at the pace they're going.
It's a tough ride in the B race today. I mean, we've basically got a B1 division level ZRL race going on here. Like, the quality of that field is pretty outstanding, really. Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, absolutely. I will temporarily stop sharing because I think it's going to ruin our feed a little bit for now. But
and you also mentioned that I won 3 CRL races.
Next time something kicks off, I'll pop it back on screen.
In Division 1.
How are we doing in the A's? Still 25, 26 seconds. That breakaway. Very good.
They're holding it well. They're holding it very well. It's interesting to see that yet again, like, on and off there's these punches in the group, but they just don't want to commit. And I don't blame them. I wouldn't want to be in this situation at all. And I feel like, however hard they ride here, they're going to want to ease up between this and the forward KOM, and they're going to want to ease up after the forward KOM again. So when they ease up,
what I'd be doing at this point, to be honest, is I would attack very early on this climb. I would do orange numbers now and hope that some people come with me. If someone else goes, if you get a group of 4 or 5 and you can put time in the climb, you might then stand a chance of clawing something back. But it is almost like
to see. As you say, like I can see that happening. It's going to be interesting. I know a few of them are listening in, and don't take our tactical advice, guys. There's a reason we're not necessarily winning every race, but be interesting.
The thing about this climb is it's really hard to lose a blob. In fact, David Ranham was saying on my feed the other day that he once did a 4-minute full gas effort just from the com marker to the top, and he put 2 seconds into the blob, and he was doing like 2 watts per kilo more than them. It's not that steep. There's plenty of places for the blob to get together and just catch you up. So it's hard for an attack.
We've just seen on the stream here, we have just seen how they are a full-on hairpin of this Titans Grove climb ahead. In fact, the front group has just crossed the line.
Here we go.
The second group isn't in sight. Like, they will not catch a glimpse of these guys all the way through here, which is certainly, for me at least, that if you can't see the riders you're chasing, there's a point that lets them get away.
Absolutely, and it'll be interesting to see if anyone in the blob powers down on the descent. It's a tactic we've seen, for example, Piglet use in the WTRL time trials that if you really kick, you can get that blob up to huge speeds, and you can try and use that to your advantage. I can see these guys in the breakaway all looking at super tucking. No, they're not. I thought they were.
They were super tucking at one point. We did have that.
Using every advantage they can get. There was Pete putting ginger numbers down to power through. It's incredibly impressive what they're doing, and I'd be amazed if they manage to keep this up.
A few super tucks in the blob, but they're not taking time back on this descent despite the bigger blob. Yet it's staying at that 23 seconds they brought it back to on the climb. And they only climbed that climb yet again 6 seconds quicker. So those heavier guys at the front, they've got that advantage on the descent, and with the three of them, it's enough to hold off this blob.
Super tucking in the blob helps you versus the other people in the blob, but it doesn't help the blob versus the people who've got away from the blob. So the blob are just racing each other at this point. It's all split in the Bs. It is fully strung out. We've got a group off the front led by Phil Vink. That's got Mike Box. It's got a couple of the Vision guys whose names I can't see fully. Pete Adams, Michael Haran. And then we've got a group 6, 7, 8 seconds back that are kind of together with Jonas, Chris Taylor, Jason Vaughan. I think maybe we're seeing the difference of the watts per kilo guys versus the watts guys. Interesting to see what's going on. I've lost Katie Loca.
Oh, she's had a Zwift drop. She's just mentioned on the stream.
Oh no!
Devastating. She was one of our picks for this as well.
Katie, I was scrolling through looking for you, thinking I'd have had you up there with that with Phil and with Michael, with my box.
I've got the bees. Great news, guys. We've got the bees on stream.
Fantastic. Here we go.
And the best thing about it is, from what I can tell, we can see the Bs and the As on Zwift together now, which is fantastic. Oh, or maybe not. But still, we can see here Mike Box pushing it off the front up the KOM. And that separation is happening. We've got P. Adams here, just getting back in over top of the climb, perfectly timed. And as you say,
at the moment, it looks like there might be three groups, but I think on the descent, it'll regroup to 2, potentially. Oh, I don't know. We might end up with 3 little blobs after all in the Bs. I tell you what, it's a more interesting race. Very interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this goes down the descent. As you can see, that front group there, I mean, we've got a good mix of... Well, Backpedal have done quite well out of that, seeing that they have, 4 of the 6 riders in that group, 1 Vision and 1 watts per kilo rider, as far as I can see. They've made that gap from what I can tell.
Nice. Yeah, that's a strong group, that is. It wouldn't surprise me if that's a race-defining selection there, if it's between those front 5, 6 riders. If they work together, if they don't attack each other too early, wouldn't surprise me if we see the if we're looking at the winners already there in that front set.
It's
one of them. But sorry, you go, Tommy.
It's interesting me to think, are those 2 groups behind going to come together? I say Jonas and Stephen gonna kind of keep off the front there, or are we going to have Carl, Ian and Jason kind of working their way across to them? I think we might. And that second group then, that's going to be an interesting race in itself with after that kind of first defining climb. How does it all play out on the volcano between those guys?
Absolutely. And, let's not forget that on this course, there's still a huge amount of descent and a huge amount of flat, and it can be quite hard if you're off on your own. I know in the ACAT we've seen already this bold attack, but I still think Blob can win in this if they've got something to chase. And in the Bs, I don't think we're seeing the same thing as in the As with people sitting in. I think this Blob is working. So, yeah, be very interested to see how that plays out.
So, switching back to the A race to see what's going on here. That gap still 23, 24 seconds. and the blob kind of chilling together really, coming out of Titan's Grove. So unfortunately, we've missed all our wildlife viewing opportunities, which is quite disappointing.
Oh,
We
what a
even
shame.
managed to miss the rubber duck as well, which I mean, I was so looking forward to going into the joys of finding little tidbits like that on Zwift, but you wouldn't notice without looking for them. But no, 29, 30 seconds again. Like, those boys on the front are still working it, and these guys back here, they're letting it go in between the climbs. I mean, at what
I was
point
about to say that the boys in the front group were doing much lower watts per kilo now, and I wondered if it was a conscious choice between, well, we've got this gap or we can't do it anymore. But just as I said that, Pete put down 7 watts per kilo for a good 15 seconds. So prove me wrong. These boys are still working.
It's interesting to see as
Very
well
good.
that looking at Gunnar here, his power and his heart rate is relatively consistent the whole way through this effort that I've been watching. We've been holding around the 150 to 155, 156 now beats a minute, and between that kind of 300 to 350, 360 watt range, he's been doing this the whole way, and as I said, he can hold this. He's got that strength, and the same goes for Paul and Peter here. Like, yet again, they're holding this consistent power. None of them are pushing really deep into the red yet. They're making a brilliant fist of this, and it's interesting to see. Like 35 seconds, that's a hell of a gap.
And don't forget, this course is only 35 kilometers long. There's only about 13, 14 kilometers to go. They have done the bulk of the distance. Okay, there's a lot of elevation, but still, it's not the full course. You know, it's a serious competition now. Wow.
Just looking at this blob from above, like it's stretching out. They're not holding this very tight between them. And in fact, I say that we've got Ed making an attack and Kelvin following and Ian following before they reach this KOM. They're wanting to make this hard now. It's really going to be interesting to see how that plays out for these guys behind. Guys like Mick, who they're going to have to punch really hard up this climb to get across, because those boys at the front, they're not easing up it.
You know, it almost does feel to me like this blob is now competing within itself for those 4th, 5th, 6th positions. Attacking off the front early is interesting. If it were me, I'd be tempted to try and attack with a smaller group of 4 or 5 riders who can hang on up here, go full gas, and then work to chase down this breakaway without dragging the guys like Mick, who I know are going to beat me if I give them half a chance, to the line. I don't know. We are seeing a split, but we're seeing it brought back.
See what I was saying about Mick punching across. He's come to the front of that second group, and he's ridden his way across to Kelvin and Ian. But we're seeing Ed absolutely lighting it up off the front here. I mean, I wouldn't want to be there. I wouldn't want to be in that group seeing that happen, because that's scary thought, particularly with that gap having come down to 25, 24 seconds to Paul and Peter, and seeing Gunnar with his massive watts has been distanced slightly by those two guys on the KOM here as well, so he's in a kind of no man's land between the two groups. Certainly,
I think we might be seeing the groups that go here. You're seeing sort of 5, 6, 7 seconds coming down to the guys behind. Ed Laverack is off the front, but I do think he'll be brought back by a blob because he's so featherweight on this descent.
Well, you've got Ed, Ian, Kelvin, and Mick here in a little group of 4, not far behind Gunnar. And if they get together on the descent, and in fact you've got Mr. Bailey here of watts per kilo coming across as well. I mean, if these guys, Paul Bailey here of watts per kilo getting across here. If these guys get in a group, they could fight their way across to Peter and Paul here. And then all of a sudden, the whole dynamic has changed. It's crazy to see how much it can change on such a short climb.
So when Gunnar gets caught, that is a when at this point. it'll be interesting to see if he kicks. It's a descent, but it's very gentle descent at this point. If he's able to stay with this group, he will drag them down. They'll fly, and I think they will bring back the 2Ps on the front there. But who knows? Who knows how this is going to pan out?
It's a very tricky point to be at, actually, when you think about it. Like, if you're Gunner right now, you don't want to drag this group with you, but at the same time, you know you can't hold them off all the way to the line, and you're not sure. At least if I were him, I'd be worried about beating them up that volcano as well. So what do you do in this situation? Where do you set your goals?
Yeah, if I were him, I'd accept the inevitable. And all he can do is sit in and recover. Of course, he's worked very hard up to this point, so who knows what his legs are like versus theirs. But 3 seconds, it's going to be rolling. I'd be very surprised if he's able to hold this off. How is it towards the back of this A race? It looks very split up. We haven't really got blobs anymore. We've just got individuals.
These riders that have been shelled, they're out the back. It's sad to see, but it's what happens in this race, particularly when they light it up like that. And as we say that, we see Kelvin and Ed absolutely smashing it off the front of this little group, forcing a reaction from those behind. They're wanting to get across the Gunner and potentially put some of these other guys in the hurt. And you see Ian having to go to what's it numbers yet again.
I would want Gunner's draft before the steep part of this descent, because that's going to make such a difference to their blob. I understand why they've kicked there, knowing that this little rise is coming, but can everyone else react?
Looks like they're all going to make it across, and it's actually going to be on Gunner to kick across on this last little bit to make sure he's embedded. They're saying that. He looks like he's done that perfectly.
Nice. Yeah, I think this blob will settle now.
That's interesting to see some feedback from Prez in the chat saying that Ed was saying that his goal was to kick to make that smaller but more powerful group in the hopes that it'll become a more cohesive working unit. It's interesting to see tactics like that we see in road racing. Yet again, it's playing out in a Zwift race like this, like getting that group to the right size. It's able to be cohesive and functional.
It's all split in the Bs. We're just on the final stretch of the climb of the com there, and Phil Vink is off the front with one of the Vision boys, Kay Ulegard. I'm sure I've said that wrong.
Here we are.
But they've got themselves 5 seconds. Yeah, this B group's all split up. Michael Harron in our stream chat has told us to call the winner. I don't know if he means the winner of the A's or the B's, but
whichever race, this B race has fallen apart, hasn't it? You've got Phil and, forgive me getting names wrong here.
What's his name? Casper
Ulegard. So we've got these two, 5 seconds, but they're both looking at the watts they're doing for the power. Neither of these are the largest of riders in terms of watts, in terms of pure watts. So down this descent, it'll be interesting to see if the second pack can get themselves together a bit with 3 compared to 2, or even potentially 4 if Mike can fight across to their wheels. Can they?
Go on, Mike Box.
Can they bring them back? That's going to be interesting to see.
And on this very first part of the descent of this com, it's so rolling that if you use your momentum in a blob correctly, you can gain a lot of time very quickly. But similarly, if you don't use that momentum, you can really slow down. You can really hemorrhage time. So, as you say, it'll be a battle of who's working together the best.
It's interesting to see Mike is stabilising this gap at about 5 seconds, but he's unable to. Naturally, after a big effort up the climb like that, it's really hard to fight across, doing more than the guys that have dropped you on the climb. We're saying that he's brought it back.
Being in that no man's land.
So slowly, that gap is coming down a little bit, but it can be a fantastic effort if he gets himself across. Brilliant to see. It's interesting as well, that gap to the front too, it's slowly coming down by a second now. It'll be interesting if on the steep part that blob speed does make the difference.
Like you say, I'm just looking at the watts per kg of these different guys, and I think the 3 we've got in the second group have a bit more mass to them. I hope that was a polite enough thing to say. Apparently Ed's attacked in the A's, Tommy. Maybe we should go over and see what that's about. But yeah, I imagine that group of 3, if they're heavier, they will roll faster than Phil and then Casper. So I'll keep an eye on that as we head over to see.
So we're back with the A's now, and we've still got our group of 6 together, but that gap has come down by 3 seconds yet again. And as I say, Ed is putting the hurt on these boys.
Maverick. So in my notes, I identified this descent on the Dirty Suppressor as an unlikely attack point. Because of our short course, it's the last stretch of dirt before the volcano, and it's a descent where if you're a heavy rider, if you were to sprint here, I think you could probably get quite a big gap. But no one has, so that's a shame. I hoped that would be an unconventional point of attack, but alas not.
Certainly, it's interesting to see that difference at the surface and the kind of different rolling resistances from different surfaces you get on Zwift. It's kind of really interesting to see how much of a difference that can play on tactics. Like, it's not something you necessarily think about when you're sat in the blob. But as you come onto that dirt, all of a sudden you do have to up your watts slightly to stay with it.
Just looking back to the Bs very quickly, Mike Box has made that gap. Whole group has come back together there, so we've got 6 in our front pack again. That is a phenomenal effort from Mike Box. Like, incredible to have pulled back Phil and Casper, and they're all super tucking down that very sharp corner on the com descent.
That is amazing to see. They've brought that back stunning. Just looking at them now, the second group is nicely grouped together as well. They have really got 2 races now in this B race with that, as you say, that front group that Mike has done a fantastic job getting across to. And then our second group where we've got Jason, Stephen, Jonas, etc. Like, they've got their own kind of fight going on here. So it's really interesting to see how it has kind of almost deteriorated into a bunch of races within the race.
Yeah. And again, it's something about this course that makes it so good that you can do that there's all these selection points, and then you come back together and you always race in someone. There's always tactics. It's not a TT where you're just about flat power. It's not a hill climb where it's about flat watts per kilo. It's always about tactics versus your fellow racers, this course.
Quickly jumping in there, we are seeing a big attack from Ed Laverack. Sustained ginger numbers, 9 and a bit watts a kilo. And
that's filthy.
We are absolutely flying into the volcano now. That was just the initial ramp to get onto the volcano circuit. He's got 2 to 3 seconds on the group. Unfortunately, Paul has been...
The group have kicked nicely here, and it's strung them out completely. They've all reacted. Some have reacted quicker than others. And they've given up, I think.
We've lost Paul off the back of that group from watts per kilo. So it is down to the group of 4 backpedal boys chasing down Ed, who's pseudo backpedal Wahula Cole. Who's he riding for today? I guess riding for himself.
Look at this. Ed is putting out double the watts per kilo of that group on average. You can see Ed consistently at 7 to 8 and the group at 3.5, 4. That's insane. So I wonder if Ed is trying to close the gap between him and Paul and Peter before the climb. I wonder if he wants a wheel in that climb to attack halfway up.
Potential. I mean, it depends how he wants to race this. I mean, if he wants to just put out a massive effort for the rest of this race, he's capable of doing that. But that takes a lot out of you. And if it were me, and he could invest enough to get across to that gap, then why wouldn't you take that extra rest on the climb if you think you've got them in the second half of it?
Wouldn't necessarily surprise me to see if Ed can close that gap now around this. They do an outside loop of the volcano right before the climb. If he can close that gap and then he can sit in with Paul and Pete until the second half, you go through the volcano and then it gets steeper, and we'll just see 7, 8, 9 watts per kilo from Ed to the top for those few minutes. It wouldn't surprise me at all. And he's still pushing. Sure enough, he is closing that gap down.
Yeah, I'm looking at his V now. He's got them in sight. They're not going to hold him off, yeah. I don't think.
I mean, part of me is genuinely wondering if Ed was not expecting this. None of us were really expecting that breakaway that we saw in the desert. Like, don't forget, they went with less than 5K on the clock, and they stayed away all this time. Peter and Paul, whatever happens, they've had an absolutely sensational ride.
You've got to give them credit. Like, it takes a lot of guts to go for it that early, and Peter, Paul, and Gunnar, they really took the race by the horns, and kind of, at the end of the day, they have dictated how this race has been raced to this point, and I don't think there's a bigger compliment you can pay to them than they have decided how the whole thing's been played out. Like, got to give them credit.
I think the mental strength, and yeah, I know Paul is a time trialist, so you have to have that mental strength of saying, what I'm doing now is enough, and that's what I will do till the end. But when they saw that gap coming down through Titan's Grove, they didn't go mental. They just ratcheted it back up a bit again. They kept the gap they needed, and they've stayed off the front. But like clockwork, Ed is going to catch them just before this climb starts.
And look at that, a draft. Onto the topic of power-ups, he has deployed that draft boost perfectly. He has got onto their wheel, and he's, as you say, he's got that free ride basically now into the foot of the volcano after a bit of an effort there.
Yeah. And, you know, Ed likes the volcano. We've seen Ed win up the volcano on live streams repeatedly. It's boring, but I think the podium, or at least I think the gold medal is dictated now, unfortunately. But what I'll find really interesting is if Ed truly kicks early, if these guys try and hold his draft, you can draft on the volcano, but if Ed's doing 7 watts per kilo,
as you say that, 7 watts per kilo on that first little rise there.
So do these boys have anything left? Are they going to be able to sit with him, or is the blob going to reel that in? 25 seconds. If you're a blob that's got fresh legs versus a breakaway that's been out front for 40 minutes, really. This is going to be so tight. I think everyone is rooting for Paul and Peter here. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. That's not impartial at all, is it? As
a commentator, we're allowed to pick our favourites, and I'm fully on board with that. Paul, Peter, and Gunnar is brilliant to see.
Yeah.
This second group coming, they're racing hard for this now. They're trying to break it up with each other. Paul and Peter are looking like they're struggling a little bit to hold Ed's wheel, but it looks like he's just gone. So that's interesting now, because that's a tough gap to close, 2 seconds to Ed, particularly on this section of volcano here. Although this first half is more variable in gradient, as far as I remember, this 5% drags on for a little while, and once that gap goes 4 or 5 seconds, even on the flat in the middle, you'd have to kick hard to close that gap, and I don't know that you'd want to be doing that at this point of the race.
So now in our second group of the A's, I think it'll be very interesting to see if Kelvin and Ian do try and shed Mick and Gunnar. I would be kicking early doors, because giving them a draft, the power they've got, I want them off my wheel. You know, Mick is going to beat me at the very end.
We see Mick here, he's working hard, and that gap has gone a little bit, but I wouldn't put it past Mick just to close that down now. If he's got anything left to, he knows he has to. And Kelvin and Ian, they're pushing on, but they're not holding consistently super high numbers that we know they're both capable of. They're working, as I say that, they start spiking up a bit, but
absolutely. My opinion of what they need to do now is they just need to go to 6 or 7 for 10 seconds. You know, make that gap real. Take away the potential for Mick to hang on. But nobody's brought it back. Mick's fully on their wheel again. This is an amazing ride from Mick.
The tricky thing is, Mick is such a clever racer. He knows how much he can invest on these ramps, and he is so good at knowing when he can ease off and when he can push back up again. So many times I've seen him, I thought he's cooked, and he's just pulled a big kick out of nowhere to close the gap over a crest, getting on the wheels into the descent and getting that recovery that no one else is getting. So, it's interesting to see. I feel like
absolutely.
What's going to be most interesting for me is how the difference between how Kelvin and Ian approach this, because if I'm Ian, I'm knowing I've got the best watts per kilo out of this group over most durations, really, until we get down to those really short ones. And I feel like he's going to have to go the earliest of all of them and just hope he can ride them off his wheel. But with the kick of Mick, and then with Kelvin, who's got a really, really strong kind of 1, 2, 3 minute power as well, like, it's going to be really interesting how this plays out.
If I were Ian, I would be slingshotting here. I would sit on Kelvin's wheel until you come out of this gap, and then it's a really steady 5-6% for a while. I would attack as soon as they take this left-hander. I want to get that distance early, because if you don't get distance on the Volcano, you're working for someone else. I think you have to put the gap in. You can't just sit off.
Saying that,
I think they're going to do it. Paul and Peter, I think they're going to do it.
Yeah, there's no 15 seconds. That's a big gap, and Kelvin and Ian, they can't mess around racing Mick or each other at this point. Everyone in that group just has to go flat out now to bring that back. They're gonna have to be doing 6 watts per kilo average to the line to close that gap down if Paul and Peter maintain what they're currently doing. And as I say that, we see Peter go up to 6 himself for a second. I think they've pulled an absolute blinder there.
Yeah, that they've still got that in the tank is incredible, and I bet they're running on fumes, but I think they've got it. Talking about the bees temporarily, we're just approaching the bottom of the Volcano Con, and they've kind of split a little bit. We've got this group of 6 still pushing on, but in the group behind, Little Ian and Spritch of Backpedal have both put 5 seconds into the other group. They've attacked before the hill, and it looks like they're holding it steady. So I think we might see that pay off for those guys. I don't know if they think they've got worse watts per kilo, but Ian has a really strong watt per kilo. I think that'll be a wise attack.
This is getting exciting now on the Volcano in the A race. Ian has put in a massive attack, sustained 7-8 watts per kilo for a while there. Got 2 seconds to Mick and 3 seconds to Kelvin. So Mick has gone really hard for his punch there. The question is, can he sustain this now? Now he's solo essentially, or with Kelvin. And Ian he's closing that gap to Peter and Paul extremely quickly. He's got them in sight just around the corner, down to 9 seconds. I mean,
by my mark, we've got about 1K to go. So the question is there enough road for Ian to close that? I just don't know.
Well, we know the final kick of the Volcano is super steep and takes an eternity, particularly when you're riding it. But the question is, will his watts per kilo come into play on that? Will he be close enough to take those final couple of seconds? He probably has there. I mean,
go on, Ian. Full knobhead mode, mate. You can do this. Paul and Peter, their watts per kilo is going from 3 to 8 up and down, and that for me is dying men getting up out of the saddle for a little kick, sitting down, recovering. That's people on their limit, in my opinion. I might be wrong.
Both of their heart rates are up a solid 20 beats on what it was on the flat. So I think you're very right there. And interesting looking here at Ian, he's up at 197 beats a minute. Now we know he can go over 200, but
yeah, that's zone 2 for him.
this is a big effort from him. Sustained 350 watts now, like. He's closing that gap, but as you say, the banner's in sight. The question is, where is the line exactly? Where is the finish line? I don't know that
this is going to be defined by who's got the kick here, I think, because you hit 9-10% now.
We're on 10,
I don't think Ian can do it.
He's closing on Paul, but Peter's kicked away from Paul really hard, and it's down to where is the actual finish line of the race, and I'm not sure that we're going to see this on fan view. I mean, some rapid times up the Volcano here, but
yeah, incredible work. Peter McMullen taking 2nd place up the Volcano. Whether it's the end of the race, we don't know.
There's a little way to go yet, and I think the positions are pretty much decided. I can't see Ian closing that gap for the podium to Paul. I think Paul has held him off amazingly there. Like, he's got him in his sight, but Paul's beating him on watts per kilo. And as we come on to descent to finish, I can't see that coming back.
Yeah, amazing.
I think we're
looking back at the bees here. We've totally split up. They're just going through the Volcano the first time on the climb. We got Phil and Casper off the front again, and then it is just a string of riders Very interesting race.
Just going to switch across the Bs now because that is Ed across the line, having finished the race on that downhill. So we've seen Ed winning the race, and I'll go across to Zwift Power shortly to get some more view of the final results in the A race. But as you say, across to these Bs.
That front breakaway's been brought back for now. So Phil and Casper have been caught by Pete Adams, I think, is a backpedaler, and Jay Winwood. It's going to be a very interesting race.
Yeah, Johnny Winwood there, doing a fantastic job getting across. Although Phil putting in a massive attack now. What's it numbers again? And Michael Haran, he was just looking like he might have a chance to get across slightly, but I don't think he has now if they're sparking it up again.
Wow, this is all in from Phil. This is, I mean, if you're going to do an attack, commit to it, and Phil is committing to it. It is early to be doing 8, 9, 10 watts per kilo on the Volcano, but like I've been saying, you need a gap on this climb. You can't just ride people off your wheel. You've got to punch. I mean, there's punching and there's this.
Interesting to see he's built himself a 10-second gap, and now in theory he can just do a slightly 0.1, 0.2 watts per kilo lower than them if he wanted to the line. I mean, but he's not doing that at the moment. He's pushing on, but he's built himself that buffer.
Avid Ramham, we're not commenting on that today. Keep it friendly. This is a
massive effort. Just
15 seconds.
Interesting to see stage fan here that Ed was working hard to get across to those front two, really pushed him. And interest all the A's flooding into the chat now, giving feedback on their race.
Tell us more about your race when we're done watching the Bs, lads. It's unreal here. It's really fully split.
The race for second, third, and fourth is going to be absolutely mental. You've got Pete pushing on the front. You've got, I believe, Casper really
Casper
sticking to his wheel like glue, and then you've got Johnny sticking to his wheel like glue. I mean, this is certainly.
And then back there, Mike Box and Mike Haran have got together as well, so they're working together. Spritch is now off on his own. Little Ian is off on his own. But he's just been caught by Chris Taylor, Jason Vaughan, Carl Raynham, and Jonas Hagqvist. Sorry, Jonas. It's amazing.
It's a exciting race, so many different groups. I think this is where we can really talk about bike choice now and how it's potentially going to play out, particularly in these groups. Like here we see 2 Trons and then a Scott Addict with, I believe they were DT Swisses. Just having a quick look.
This is where you always face that conundrum of thinking,
and there might be MVs actually.
Discs. I think they are MVs, yeah.
So what we're seeing here is a light bike with a light aero setup. The ultimate all-rounder of the game, essentially. I mean, I wouldn't want to be in this position if I was any of them, because it's going to be brutal.
Phil is still putting orange numbers out to get over this crest here. He is not content with a 15-second gap, even though he can see the line.
Well, you say that it's not a consistent gap. He knows he's got to work to hold this. Like, it's holding at 15, but only with him putting these big efforts in. And I'm guessing he's counting on losing time on the flatter sections, potentially, to the group draft. But even still, it's a massive effort from him.
He's just crossed the line, so it's just a case now of whether he can hold it off on the descent. And 15 seconds, I think he should be able to, but we don't know where that finish line is. So he's taking no chances. And fair play.
Moving back
Mike
across this
Fox
line.
Has dropped Mike Haran here in the race for 5th place. Mike Box, that's a very strong ride, having done a big effort earlier on. How are we in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th positions?
We've just seen a draft
neck and neck.
We've just seen a draft power up and an aero power up being used. Pete used his aero power up but didn't get any separation. He might be ruining that when it comes down to the final kick. and the draft power up, if I can't remember right, I think it was Johnny that used the draft just to stay there and save that little bit of energy. Will that come out in the final kick? The question is, of course, if Casper still has a power up left, can he make that difference? But Peter has gone early. And they're all kicking off now.
Oh yeah, miscalculation. I think that these guys are using him as a slingshot and powering through. I think we might be seeing.
We're seeing
Johnny's
taken it. They've just crossed the line.
Yes.
Johnny, Casper,
well
and
done,
Peter.
Johnny.
That was epic to watch.
Cracking ride. Well done, lads.
Right, do we trying to think, do we know any Zwifters' names in the C race to see if I can jump across to them?
Give me a second to consult my spreadsheet. Jacob Payne. Payne spelled Payne. I don't follow him, so I have to search.
I'm on it.
Jacob. In the C race, Jacob is a junior, and his watts per kilo is insane. He would be an A on watts per kilo, but because he's young, his wattage is so low, he's a C. And I believe, Mick is saying Tim Bliss is in it as well.
Tim Bliss of Backpedal. We've got him.
Yeah.
We're on the C race.
Oh, yes. And see where we're up to in the C race.
So we've got Jeff and Tim off the front here, it looks like. With, I believe that's Brian Posner of Team Type 1 in third. And I believe is that Nispirus of...
Nispirius Barnes, I believe, or Barn.
Just
one of us.
So it's come apart with such a small race. It's hard to hold that, though. Hard to hold that draft if it does break up like this. But yeah, so we're seeing Tim and Jeff going for it, blow by blow up this climb, I feel like.
My notes on the C race are Jeff. Jeff is American, and Jeff has eaten a lot of pizza. That's what I can tell you about Jeff. See if I've got anything on Tim. Give me a second.
I mean, Jeff's pizza power, it's paying off. Actually, whilst we've got it here, it's a good talking point. Actually, Brian from Team Type 1, that's a team where all the riders are either friends or family members or athletes themselves with Type 1 diabetes, and kind of in a community that really helps inspire each other to get out and get active on Zwift. And sport is a brilliant way to kind of raise awareness about actually what you can do with Team Type 1. I mean, for example, there's a professional team, Team Novo Nordisk, who are kind of affiliated with Team Type 1 slightly, where every rider in it is a Type 1 diabetic, and just recently they've been smashing it up. Like for the last 2 or 3 years, I believe they've had 2 or 3 riders in the breakaway at Milan San Remo, which has just been incredible to see.
That is not messing about. Like, that is serious. But the fact that it goes from top level to community grassroots and is helping a cause, Type 1 diabetes can affect anyone of, born anywhere or anything. It's quite I guess an overarching condition, and I think it's really important to raise awareness and support. What was the event they did recently, Tommy? You shared it with us, didn't you?
So yeah, recently Team Type 1, they all headed up to the Alp and were smashing it up and down the Alp. I believe a large number of them were doing a V Everesting, actually, if I remember right.
Wow.
Yes, they were. So that's it's amazing. And
we're just seeing Jeff here having dropped Tim. That pizza is powering him on. Jeff, this is really strong, mate. 3.5, 3.6 watts per kilo.
The question is,
Jeff,
what was the
Jeff
topping of the pizza?
Saying, we'll have to get him to tell us later, see what's fueled him. But Jeff has been struggling with getting time on the bike. I know he's posted quite often that he tries workouts here and there, but I think he does soccer coaching.
Yes,
pains me to say soccer,
but soccer coach over in America. So yeah, it's getting that.
But it's really nice to see him getting back involved, and I know Ruben coaches him a lot, so it's great to see that paying off. Tim Bliss, you can dig in, mate. I believe that you can not lose the time there. So unfortunately for these guys, everyone in the CCAT is split up. It's just becoming a time trial up the volcano, which is a bit depressing. But also, I think it's really important to see these guys, keep racing. The time still matters to them, and after a hard race of just a few of them,
as you say, like it takes a lot of guts and a lot of mental strength to keep pushing on when you know that the group split up like this, and you're potentially just racing yourself at this point. And to do that, it's just so impressive to see. Like, yeah, it's really inspiring, to be honest. As I say, like Jeff holding that consistent right at that 3.2 to 3.5 watts, like he's working up here, but it's a strong effort.
Yeah. That is a really strong effort. And it's hard because the volcano is drafty. For me, it feels like it drags on forever when you're on your own, because I always have a time in mind, and whatever time that may be, most people's time they have in mind on the volcano is in a group. So when you're on your own, it's something like, oh, this is a minute or two longer, and I have to dig in for all of it. I mean, Jeff is pushing 3.5s here, really strong. Great ride.
The volcano takes forever for me in a group, so solo is even more impressive.
Yeah. In Bliss here saying he had nothing left. Don't believe that for a second. He's still doing 3 watt per kilo.
It's a super strong effort, as you mentioned, from these guys. So yeah, we'll keep watching this race on the screen, but I think we've got some input from some of the A's and B's that have been finishing, and interesting to see how much these guys are saying they're going in the red. Like Mick Bookoff, for example, 93 TSS in 53 minutes. That's a lot.
Nice work, Mike Walkoff. That's that's insane. That's FTP testing coming. Kelvin Newman FTP police is going to be coming for you.
And I mean, yeah. Phil V saying he's toast. I mean, I don't blame you. You put in a massive attack in the second half of that volcano there.
Going orange numbers so early doors on the volcano and saying, I've got to recover from this, like 15 seconds of orange numbers, and then I've got to do threshold and then do orange numbers again. That's insane. To recover at the power he was putting out, I am not surprised he was at the max. That is hard. Ian there saying it made him feel like he was in an actually important race. Of course, this is an actually important race. What are you talking about?
I mean, yeah, this is the Backpedal and Friends pre-festive throwdown of all things. I mean, where else are you going to get such excitement on the 22nd of December 2021? As far as I'm aware, there's no other live cycling on the TV.
There you go. This is the premier race going on right now.
GCN, you can take this as our application to join your commentary team. I mean,
yeah, I don't want to be arrogant, but we've done a better job of knowing who the riders are and keeping focused on the topic at hand.
I mean, we've not even talked about how that kind of dusting of snow on the mountains reminds me of kind of the dusting of sugar on top of a Yule log. I mean,
beautiful tangent. And that lava coming out the volcano, that is fully like the middle of a Christmas pudding on fire. Right there. Christmas, so hot, so festive. Yeah. Let's keep an eye on Jeff as he's doing this amazing TT. Tim Bliss is still putting down mega numbers as well. These guys, the race isn't over till it's over for them. They're pushing to this line.
They're all digging properly deep here, and I mean, it's a super effort from all of them. Like, to keep on pushing hard, as we said earlier, and Jeff here, he's barely dropped under 3 up this whole climb. I mean, and the banner's literally just around this corner as he approaches the final kick, and from that banner he'll only have 0.9 kilometers to go to the finish. It's you can't help but applaud. And
absolutely.
The perfect use of the feather as we come to that final steep slope.
Oh yeah, every advantage you can get up here. Sometimes I really struggle with just, even if you're on your own, when you hit 10% and you've just done an over threshold effort for that long, having to get up and out the saddle and really push those big watts is mentally taxing. So that feather, just any help you can get to push that speed. This is big effort to get over there. Well done, Jeff.
Just switching across to Tim here as he approaches that same corner. I mean, Jeff has got that. I don't want to say easy because he's not taking it easy, but he can relax a little bit now, enjoy that ride into the line, whilst Tim has the final push up this steep ramp around this corner. I always think it's a proper mental struggle up this final corner here because that banner isn't in sight until the last moment, and the road just rears up in front of you as you twist the whole way up the volcano.
I always think, on the mini-map it looks so close, but you slow down so much as this gradient goes up that it just never gets any nearer. It's really tough. I've just flicked over to Zwift Power to see the final standings, and I think we knew pretty much how everything played out, but just to review the A race there, I think Peter and Paul, my absolute riders of the race, and Guna's still coming in 7th.
It's a fantastic
That's
effort.
very strong.
Really quickly jumping across to what I believe is our D race, we have Daniel Posner of Team Type 1, who is, I believe, our only rider who jumped in the pen and gave it a go. And it is fantastic to see him coming. In fact, I think he jumped in the A pen with us, even though, as far as I'm aware, he is a DCAT rider. And that's
incredible.
That's a gutsy move right there. And he's doing a brilliant strong kick up the final bit of this. And I believe it's a family affair with Daniel and Brian as well. So that's nice. Brilliant to see.
Yeah. Yeah, fantastic. Keep pushing, mates. Not far to the line now.
And he's over that crest now and into the final stretch of the downhill, which is brilliant.
Just got to dig in for that final little kick. Can get hard. Very good. Oh, that's a strong finish.
Look at Tim here with orange numbers over 10 watts per kilo to get him across that line, that final section. Fantastic to see. But right, so you were talking about the Zwift Power results. I'll see if I can get them up on screen for us here.
Yeah, that'll be great. Just have a little review of how everyone did. And it's nicely spread out. As we were saying, no one stopped racing. The way this is all split up all the way down each category. Really impressive to see those punches. Johnny Winwood there had an incredibly strong race in the Bs. I feel tore his legs off a bit on that final climb, but to beat Casper to the line was a very strong effort.
Right,
as
here we
say
are.
Again, Ian.
I believe.
Perfect.
Yeah, we've got Zwift Power up here now, and I'll have a little look through. So here we can see the. You'll have to give me some feedback on if I've got them on screen there because I can't have both open at the same time. But yeah, so Ed obviously taking the win there with a good 26-second margin. But as you say, Peter and Paul, that's a fantastic effort from them. Yeah, and
could be good for the Zwift Power points as well, beating the likes of Mick and of Kelvin, Ian, even who they got good Zwift Power points.
It's really a really strong ride in there, and interesting to see that actually Mick and Kelvin here, they've done significantly lower watts per kilo than Ian, and although they are heavier riders, that's in part I'd have to imagine down to their brilliance at drafting on the flat there.
On the other hand, though, they also finished 52 seconds down, so maybe
very true. There's
a miscalculation.
Yeah, 14 seconds behind Ian there. That's a solid gap that he pulled out on that climb. Super impressive to see. Then moving down to this B race, as you see, like Bill's obviously absolutely lit it up that volcano, and Johnny and Casper and Peter, they've not let him have it all his way though. Only 6 and a bit seconds in it. And yet again, that final sprint between the three of them was super impressive to see. A special shout out to Peter as well, that he gave it all, as particularly as the lightest rider out of the whole race as far as I'm aware, or at least out of the B cat and A cat. Like, he's going to have to have worked, and you can see he has had to work much harder on the flats to stay in the draft, and for the fact he was able to keep it up on the Volcano as well. I mean, you've got
Oh man, 4 watts per kilo for the whole duration. Yeah, he's had to work hard. That's more than Kelvin.
Come on, Kelvin, up your game.
Yeah, that's proper effort, that is, and that is really tough. So I actually wrote in my notes that although this course might be decided on the hills, it's more than 80% flat or down. So don't underestimate the impact of just having to put out that power and to stay with them. It's serious work, that.
Right, I'm going to jump back across to the Zwift race, and I believe I might have missed a chance to catch Nisperus finishing. I'll see if I can
See if we can find him.
got to spell his name right, which is spelling is not my strong point, so we'll see if I can manage it.
I believe Nisperus got rider of the season for, was it Backpedal C1? I remember him. He got something, didn't he?
I believe he did. Yeah,
Is that right? I can't remember what he won.
He definitely took something there. A fantastic effort to see.
Yeah. And sometimes we can get caught up in the little teams we're in and forget that, well, not forget the wider community, but not know as much what's going on. So it's always nice to have things like this to remind us that it's more than just the 8 or 10 guys we race with regularly. There's a whole big group there.
Here we've got him. He's still fighting his way up the Volcano, it's a fantastic effort. It's so hard. And he's really pushing the power out now. Up in getting near to that 3 watt per kilo mark. I mean, you've got to applaud him. So yeah, how do you think you might have changed the way the race was raced if you were part of it, Nick? Be interested to know, how would you have approached this race?
You want the real answer, or do you want the idealistic answer?
Law's come in for save. He was nominated for C2. There you are.
Ah, well, awesome.
Reminds me we should mention Backpedal, ZRL, I believe it's season 5 now. If you're interested in giving the ZRL racing a go, Backpedal have teams across all the categories. Make sure you get yourself signed up on the spreadsheet to take part.
I think that, yeah, it's season 2021-2022, season 2. They've messed it up. It's very confusing. It's season 5. Hello, Jeff. That was an amazing ride, mate. The pizza fueled you on. Well-earned win.
The important question, Jeff, what topping was on the pizza? Everyone's been dying to know. Or mainly me, because I'm hungry, but...
I would also like to know. I always want to hear about food. Cycling and food, my 2 big interests. Whilst we're waiting for Jeff to let us know what was on his pizza, I think I would have gone... I don't know, I probably wouldn't have done much differently to what the blob did. I would have been with Kelvin, with Ed, maybe. But I think I probably would have really tried to make a stronger split on the Titans Grove early. I think it became apparent that group was staying away in the ACAT. Nisperus here using his draft lorry power up. It won't do anything, but
any power to get you over that last steep ramp. I mean,
why not? Yeah, even if it's got the mental boost. Good lad.
Fantastic to see.
Yeah. Peter, we're still going until the race is over. If there's people on the course, we're still going.
I mean, look at that there. A new PR up the Volcano. What more can you want for yourself than to better your personal best at the end of the day?
That is huge. Jeff had a meat lover's pizza. No need to apologise for that here, mate. Meat lover's pizza's fine by me.
So I guess I can say pepperoni power then.
Yeah, definitely. Pepperoni power.
Apologies for the cheesy joke there. I mean, I've got these puns all day.
Nice. This is it. You're the funny half. I'm the straight man in this commentating duo.
I think funny's stretching it, but no, it's been a fantastic race to watch here. I mean, everyone absolutely giving a massive effort.
Yeah, it's been a proper treat, and I'm really glad we managed to get involved, even though we couldn't race it.
mean,
Peter, it's Nisperus left on course, I believe, and he's just coming round to the finish line. I think that's our lot. As you say, there's T Blake, and believe it or not, there is an N Brownbill somewhere on course as well. But I don't think we'll be finishing.
Well, I think we'll watch him across the line. This is, as you say,
absolutely.
It's been
well earned.
to
He
see
deserves
everyone.
as much respect as Ed does. He deserves as much respect as Phil does. He's done the same race everyone else does, start to finish. So
There you are. Every single rider now that they fought their way throughout the whole course to get across that line. I mean, except me, of course. I'm still sat in the pens. But
yeah, me too.
All the categories, they've fought super hard that whole way. It's not, as much as I love the course, it's not an easy one. And as with any effort, like, you're going to have to dig really, really deep. And everyone
Absolutely.
has kind of shown that proper grit. And yeah, it's been great to watch.
Yeah, I'm going to have to head off at this point because I need to blow my nose. That is not appropriate on stream. And I think as we've all finished, it's a good time for me to go and have COVID somewhere else.
Thank you for joining me on stream. It's been fantastic to commentate with you. And thank you all for watching and tuning in. And thanks all for racing. It was amazing to see.
Yeah, cheers for setting it up, Tommy. Great work.
Awesome. And with that, I think we'll sign off then. Cheers, guys.
Yeah, see you, Tommy. See you, stream.
Goodbye.